Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Kate, and this is the Craftober Spooktacular. Today, we're making a little fluffy bag. I haven't made this yet, so I don't know how well exactly it's going to turn out, but we'll go with it. So, for what you need: a fuzzy sock, some bits of felt, something to stuff it with, some thread, and some needles. Or you could use glue. I would suggest needles and thread. Let's begin, shall we? Okay, so we start with a fuzzy sock. These ones were just from like the dollar store a while back, and I just rediscovered them again. So, you figure out how big you want your little bat to be, and this goes for anything that you're using a sock for. So if we want them to be about that big, probably need to cut off the heel like that. But just to make sure, if you're just using regular stuffing, then that's fine. We're using some scraps again. This is some of the leftovers from the same batch that the rag ghosts were in. So I'm just gonna chop these up and be back in like 5 minutes. So we've got the ILO stuffing bits, and a hack sort of thing, if you're dealing with a sock or something else that's already a tube sort of form, you can turn it inside out, and if you make kind of a spot in there in your hand, you can just grab up the majority of whatever you're stuffing it with. Like so. Obviously you gotta put the rest of it in there. Alright, so I stuffed the sock bit, and I was going to just cut it here and then sew it together, but this particular kind of sock frings really easily. So if you just take it and tuck the rest of it inside, especially if it's a short sock like this, or you could probably even cut it like here by the heel, but I'm going to try and just fold it in there, and you want to disperse it as much as you can. So try and get this part like down in here, and to make sure everything's in there, I just went around and pushed it down. And we have some extra bits, so if you hold the side, you can kind of work the rest of it down in there, like so. Okay, so that's pretty well rounded. So I'm gonna try stuffing this part and we'll see what happens. And then you want to keep it as rounded as you can, or not, it depends on what you're doing. You can make a square bat if you wanted to. That's pretty well spherical, so, and you just want to form it into whatever shape you want it to be. I pulled out the black thread and then realized that, yeah, that's not gonna work. So we'll save that for the wings and use white instead. So this is about 36 inches, give or take a bit, of thread, folded over, tied at the end, full of overhand knot, and then if you do a stitch to get the knots on the inside, you can do a gather stitch around the edge. So it's basically just making it so that when you pull it, it gets tighter, like that. Especially for something that's fluffy like this, you want to make sure you're actually getting the fabric itself, not just the loops, because if you sew through the fabric, then it actually secures it. If you just go through the loops, then it will probably tear out in that spot in not too long a time. And you can tell it's coming together right there. So we're back at the start point now. If we pull it tight like that, then there's just a little spot there. So if you take the needle and go into where the original spot was and take another stitch, just kind of going opposite, it kind of locks it a little bit so you have a little more control over it. And then you can go to the opposite side, but you can go to the opposite side and start actually securing it. So right now I'm just going, so it was around, over, back, and now I'm going to do over, back, and then tie a knot. And for this, take a little piece of the fabric, just then you can do a French knot to finish it off. So loop it around a few times and pull the needle through. And I find it easiest to hold my nail down over the knot you're forming so that it doesn't move around. And then it's in there all secured, and you can kind of fluff out the furry bits so it's more even. And then you can poke the needle down into fabric and just do that and snip it off. It should now be completely secured in there, and then you can form it back to however you wanted it to be. So that's the start of it, and you could put it on a keychain or something if you wanted to, or just have it be a little squishy. We'll set this guy over there and get out the black thread. This next part you can use either felt or like a piece of fleece or something, but depending on how big you want the wings to be, and if you want ears, that would depend on the pieces that you need. Alright, there's a lot of dark materials happening now, so switched out the background for you. Have the bat body. We need the wings. So this is kind of what they're looking like. So you have the main sort of hand thumb region up here with the little thumb there, the long finger, and then the subsequent fingers. So I'm gonna try doing a swoop, a nodule, and then past that, so that it connects back to the body down there. Then that little dude in mind over yonder there. And I'm going to use the green here for the inside of the ears because it was just floating around, and why not? Oh, for ratio, if the bat is about that big. Okay, that looks about right. And with vinyls and leathers, you don't want to use pins if possible. You want to use these little guys because pins leave permanent holes and these don't. So right now we're just doing one wing. So this is what we're copying. And when you're doing these, you can always cut it down if you need to, but you can't add to it. So for right now, I'm just going to leave it like and see what we need. And with all the markings and stuff, I'm just going with the most outside. So that is actually pretty close to this guy. And if we split it down here, then that would work for each of the sides. So I'm going to go ahead and cut another one of these so we have the two side pieces and be back in a couple minutes. Okay, so we have the bat body, we have the wings, and just to get everything cut out at the same time, we'll do the ears now. And these pieces were left over from around the wing curvy bits. Bat ears are kind of like that, sort of folded over like that. So we'll just kind of see, it's a little bit big. So okay, so that's looking more batty, and depending on placement and whatnot, we might still need to cut them down because it looks like the wing and the ear are gonna be competing for space. but for right now at least, that is a good template. So I'm going to cut the other one so that it's the same size, and then the inserts start on the ears because they're smaller, and it's the same principle regardless of what you're doing. So just like with the white thread, black, about a yard, knot at the end. I usually just do a blanket stitch around the whole thing. So if you start it from the inside right there, so you can have the knot hidden, and then line it up so that is covering it. Alright. Okay, then you want to take a stitch to start it, and then you can just carry on, wrap. Depending on the effect you're going for, you can have it more or less even. It just depends on what you want to do. But you can kind of see it on the shiny side a little bit. Okay, but the stitching is done around the edge there. I've finished the ears and clipped them so they're ready to go. Okay, so just another point as I'm doing this, I've already done up to here on this one, and something to keep in mind when you're sewing this together is if you want it to curve in a particular direction, that should be the top part. So I'm going this way, holding it like this, and the wings being curving in on the side there. If you don't pull it tight, and it's just kind of like, you pull it a little bit, so it's just kind of against it, it won't curl as much, but it still has the tendency to curl on the top side a little bit if you have just kind of more relaxed stitches. So we've got the body, the two wings, and the ears, and going to put the wings on the two sides, and this is where the opening was that we closed, so it's already a lot flatter than the rest of it, so it's going to make it easier to attach the wing. And you just do this the same way that we did around the wing and the ear. Making sure that you grab some of the actual sock and not just the fluff. And keeping the stitches close enough together that when you pull it tight, you're not bunching the wing. Unless that's the look you go for. In which case, have it. I'm going from the back side of the wing so that it still wants to fold forward. Where it's curved here, that's like the front side. And if you did it where this seam was on the other side, it would want to fold back more. And it's closer on the bottom than it is on the top. So if you line up the wing tips, it actually gives you an equidistant sort of thing. So that seems pretty even, and that also gives you enough space to do the ears on the top. So I'm just going to sew that guy down. The wings are attached now, so we're going to do the ears. So after after you've got it all sewn on, then you can just take another knit there, do that same French knot, and put the needle through a few times to lock it in place. We're gonna do 2 little shiny brown buttons for eyes, and I found some little heart buttons when I was doing things, and this one happens to actually match the felt in his ears, and that's pretty much the shape of a bat nose, so you can just do that and have a little bat nose. There we go. Okay, so we've got the threaded needle. I'm using black again. If you look at the face, you can have them be like off-centered if you want to, or however really, but I like to have mine pretty well centered, even if they are odd-sized. So if you go to where the ear's attached right here, and then just kind of follow it forward, that's about where the outside of the eye is hitting. And then also, if these just had 2 holes, then you would figure if you wanted it to go horizontal or vertical. These ones, because they have the 4 holes, either you can sew it as kind of a diamond pattern like that, or as a square. I'm going to do this around the tripod, and actually, yeah, zoom in all the way so y'all can see what I'm doing. So, and unless you pull it really tight, like really tight, the knot is going to be on the outside of the fabric, so just make sure that it's in a position that the button can cover it. And it's not as much an issue if you have a shank button, like, yeah, there we go, like this one. So it's got, it's got the little bit on the back there, so you can just put the needle through. And then you just bring it up. So right now the thread's here, and you would just bring it up next to it and then go back through this hole, like the top one. You can kind of see it right there. And then bring it over to the other side. So I finished sewing it on. I think I went over the same stitches that we did before, like 3 more times, just to secure the eye on there. And if you're giving this to a small child, or you're going to be like sleeping with it or something, you might want to just sew on a small piece of felt or fleece or the vinyl or something like that. Just if you cut out a little circle of one of the other materials you used in the wings or the ears, then you can sew it on the same way that we did everything else with the blanket stitch. Just make sure that it's not something that will fray. Now, as far as finishing this, just like with the other ones, if you take a little nick of the material, and just, I would suggest if it's a really furry thing like this, just kind of give it a little tug to make sure that it's actually in there. So it's actually under there now. And then you do the same thing as the other couple of times with the French knot, and you just secure it. I like to do another stitch back through it just to secure the ends so they're not floating all over the place. You give the thread a snip. Okay, so he's got an eye. I'm gonna put on his other eye and his nose the same way and be back in a couple of minutes. Hey guys, so as you can see, the lovely Sebastian has been completed. Do you want to show the nice people what you look like, Sebastian? He's kind of shy. Let's pick you up. And as you can see, the placement of the eyes and the button choice or whatever else that you use, if you even want eyes, you could have them look like that on the front, adds a lot to the character. I happen to have a heart button, so that mimics the kind of heart-shaped nose the bats actually have. You can do whatever you want to do with your little fuzzy friend. And Sebastian's little fluffy self is going to go have a sleep because he's been in production for a couple of days and it's been tiring. And then he's gonna go out and hunt because it's nighttime right now. See you tomorrow, guys. My playlist for the rest of our videos is gonna be right here. My other channel about plants is linked over here, and to subscribe to either one is going to be up in the top corners. So, see you later.